How do you find yourself? And what does that really even mean? When your world comes crashing down after the divorce, what a great time to rebuild. Carrie, I'm going to tell you, I would have never worked on myself if it wasn't for my world come crashing down through a horrible end of a marriage and a divorce. I just wouldn't have done it. What about you?
I think I've been the type that's always been trying to better myself, but I think I was focused on the wrong things when
Get into that for me.
Yeah.
I know we want to talk about things in general, but be specific. Like what did you work on and what would have you worked on had you not had the blind spot that maybe a marriage gives you by being comfortable in your marriage or uncomfortable in your marriage and you're working on different things, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd shared on a past episode, I think on like episode 0, that one of the lies that I believed was that I needed to not be Carrie. I needed to be someone else. I needed to be who my ex was wanting me to be. And if I did, then he would love me. Then it would get better. And that was a lie that I believed for a very, very long time. So I was focused on that kind of stuff instead of, well, no, what does the Lord want me to be? Who does the Lord want me to be? Right? Yeah. And so then when I got out of that situation, I really dove in to that of like, who is Carrie? Who did God create Carrie to be? Yeah. And you know what? Who he created me to be is actually pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I love this. Okay. Let me get into a nuance of what you just said. Mm-hmm. When you're in a marriage, you're dead to self and you're a part of a marriage. Like it's a new creation.
Sure. Yeah.
So that is your priority, is what's best for the marriage. Yes. But I'd also say a healthy you means you're a healthy partner. Mm-hmm. And so I was working on being a good husband and a good father. I was ignoring what does a good me look like? Because I thought sacrificing was the answer. Right. It wasn't until I lost those things that I looked inward and realized, oh no, I got a lot of work to do, which is why I say I would have never done it. Yeah. Because I didn't know there was a problem. I mean, you look in the mirror and you think, oh, I wish I was better at X, Y, and Z. But most people don't hit the reset button until they are forced to.
Yeah, and I think there was a line in one of Gary Thomas's books or something like that. And he said that especially in the church, we idolize marriage over the health and wellness of the individuals. And I remember when I read that, it was like a huge light bulb, like fireworks went off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's so true. That's been happening. And I need to make sure that like I'm the healthiest and best Carrie showing up, because then that's what's going to make the best marriage. Although, with my story, that wouldn't have really probably helped, but
it's a great concept.
It's a great concept.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Matter of fact, I tell people this all the time. When you do the analysis, right? They say a tree is best measured fallen. Mm-hmm. And so when marriages crumble, it's a great time to look backward and say, well, why did that fall? Why did it die? And as you're measuring, I used to count it as a feather in my cap that, wow, I was at every one of my kids' practices, went to all their games. I'm a super dad. I'm a nice guy. I don't blow up at my kids. All the things we always look at our good stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And I realized that I failed with myself. I wasn't role modeling healthy individual behavior for them to see. It's okay if dad doesn't go to all my games. It's okay. Where I thought, oh, that made me the better dad. Now I realize, no, that was a mistake. Then it's okay to look at your kids and say, hey, you're kicking a ball around a field. Your dad's going to work out. Your dad's going to go take a mental health. Your dad is going to go, we have a friend in need. I'm going to that friend's house to work on that relationship and friendship. And I'm going to miss your 4th grade basketball game. Who cares? And for parents like, oh, well, I'm just a great parent. I challenge you. I challenge you. It was one of the things I really failed at is, are you the healthiest version of are your finances out of order? Is your health out of order? Is your spiritual health out of order? Like you start taking an inventory and the answer is yes to any of them, which it is. It always is.
There's always something.
There's always something.
Sure.
Then start now. If you're married, start in your marriage.
Yeah.
And now most all our listeners will be divorced people.
Right.
Well, before you jump in that next relationship, this time of singleness is the best time for a reset.
And I think everybody needs a good, healthy amount of time being single before to really work on yourself. And that's not a couple of months. That's like a substantial amount of time.
It's years.
Yeah, I took 5.5.
Okay. Well, I'm at 6.5 and I'm still doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm still doing it. Okay. For we use you for your brain and your wisdom and all the things, but the reality is we haven't really talked a lot about your career. But I think your career and this topic are so intertwined. So just for our audience sake, let's set the table. Talk a little bit about what you do and why you do what you do. And then we're going to blend it into this conversation. I'm assuming mostly for our women listeners, but that doesn't mean our men aren't going to benefit from this,
men
right?
too. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, men can totally benefit.
Thank you. Okay.
Completely.
So I'm going to be quiet and talk a little bit, throw a little commercial in here of what you do, why you do it, how you got there. Like, here's a bio. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm a functional nutritionist. I'm also a food and health writer. So the way it all kind of came about was that I got really, really sick. And the doctors were like, we don't really know. We can't help you. There's nothing we can do here. So I turned to changing my lifestyle, changing my food, whole food supplements, all of that type of stuff to get healthy. And I was able to reverse chronic migraines and get off of all my medications, IBS, eczema, thyroid autoimmunity. I mean, I had quite a few things going. Yeah. And so now I have 2 published cookbooks and things like that. So started my site about 16 years ago, started my business about 16 years ago. Wow. And it's continued to grow and develop. And now I work a few days a week at my practice, seeing clients, and my specialty, my niche is like thyroid disease, autoimmunity, hormone balance, but I work with men and women.
Okay.
And just helping them. We don't, it's not just food. It's all the lifestyle things. Okay. It's really digging in at like, what are the root causes? It can be detox. It can be supplementation, all sorts of different things. Okay. Because getting healthy, you have to look at it from all angles.
It's a holistic. Okay, that's what I was just going to ask you. So for people who are listening, like, oh, well, you're really into health. No, health is mind. Mind is body. It's
all connected.
All
of it.
Connected. Mm-hmm. And when you add stress and trauma, which is what most of our listeners have gone through and or are going through, it's like, well, let me start dating. It's like, well, no, like, even if you're just, besides kids, house, finances, all the things that happen in a divorce, that the body keeps score, right? The famous book.
Right.
And if you don't reset correctly, you can't even begin to reset correctly past that, right? Yeah. So I'm assuming you get crisis phone calls is what starts somebody coming in, right? People just don't come in for the heck of it. It's only a problem.
No. Yeah. I mean, pretty much every single client that's ever walked through my door at their first appointment, they've told me, I've gone to everybody. I've tried everything, and you're my last resort. And so I think that because of all that I've been through, it gives me more insight into helping them. I mean, yeah, there's the food and stuff like that, but really kind of honing in and getting to know them over time, and then honing in on what I'm kind of seeing as some of their other root things. And of course, I don't play the role as like a counselor or therapist. So although a lot of them tell me, they're like, it's like therapy coming to see you, which is sweet. But of course, I'm just going to like give them some things like, hey, maybe this could be an issue or this. And hey, why don't you go talk to a therapist about that? Why don't you go see a counselor? You know, stuff like that. So
interesting. Okay. So now we have our bearings of this. You have a lens on when you're speaking here. So tell me, like, let's say we have a new divorcee and they're sitting right here. And let's say they're just listening like, okay, what should I do? You know, forget the fact that they have to work 2 jobs to survive. Forget the survival stuff, but there are priorities.
Right.
Not everybody has an equal playing field here.
Nope.
Some people have great alimony and they're fine. And some people have financial stress.
Sure.
And family stress and kids and parenting, all of it, right?
Yes.
But let's just pretend all things are equal.
Okay.
For a moment. What would you say to somebody? It's like, okay, I'm I've got my body stress, the divorce. What should I be working on? If you're telling me to reset, what's first? What's a great course of action?
I mean, I am coming at from very much a health perspective, right? But I think first, like, are you sleeping? If you're not sleeping, like, start taking steps so that you can sleep better. Because, like, foundationally, if you're not sleeping, your whole world is just not going to go well.
Which means get off your phone.
Get off your phone. Make sure that, like, at the end of the day, like, don't go to bed at 1 a.m. Get in bed at 9 or 10.
Right. And if you're not tired, then do something to get tired.
Yeah.
Where you hit the bed and crash, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Can I ask you real quick on that? Let's dig in for a second. Do you have a sleep routine?
Yeah.
Like, okay, see, that's to me...
Totally.
I have my lights in the house all go off at a certain time. Like it's a reminder. Hey, not sure why you're up,
smart.
Todd, but hint, if I have to say something, turn it back on, which makes me think, you know what, maybe I need to go on to bed.
Yeah.
2, I try not to play on my phone at night.
Yeah.
But I'm learning to keep it on the other side of the room. I lived in a job where crisis management, where I always had to keep my phone, and plus I worked at an international job, so Australia could email you in the middle of the night, right?
Exactly.
But I did an audit and I realized I don't really have that many emergencies anymore. So that little false need to stay attentive to the world, I had to just remind myself. Yeah. It's been 3 years since anybody's ever texted me past 10 p.m. or before 9 a.m. It's a false flag to say. Yeah. 2, I know a lot of us are parents. Well, just in case my kids. Well, I sleep with an Apple Watch and I have it on do not disturb to the world except for my kids. Yeah. You can make that setting on your phone to ignore everybody but them and then turn it up to 11. And then if it rings on the other side of the room, you got it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think, too, coming out of a divorce, you have to realize that your nervous system is probably dysregulated right now. You know? Yeah. So taking a look at, and a lot of people will be like, but I'm not stressed. I feel great. You know, I would say, how's your sleep? Are you sleeping? How's your digestion? Is all that going well? Do you have any issues there? If you do, you probably have your nervous system is off. Are you getting headaches? Your nervous system is probably off. Like there's basic things. Are you getting anxiety, panic attacks, things like that?
Which is food, gut health related sometimes.
Yeah, but it really goes back to your nervous system. So taking steps and just doing basic things. Well, I can walk through a few basics.
Okay, do.
These are practical, you know, like get up and eat within an hour of waking up. Okay. You know, some men do great on intermittent fasting, but when your nervous system is dysregulated, when your hormones are out of balance, whatever, go ahead and eat. I've even seen this with men. It helps.
But women, you're saying for sure.
Men, yes.
Yeah, women in intermittent fasting is not as romantic as it sounds.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just true, right?
Yeah.
The data says that.
Yeah. So eat within an hour of waking. Eat 3 meals a day. Okay. Get outside every day. Have friends in your life that you like regularly spend time with. Socialize. Laugh. You know, you can still laugh in the midst of overcoming a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff, you know.
Even the slapstick. Whatever.
Exactly.
Laugh.
Yeah. And move your body. It doesn't need to be at the beginning, you're going to the gym and you're lifting for an hour. It can literally be just get outside and go on a walk for 20 minutes a day. That is a wonderful way to balance your nervous system.
Okay.
And then, have like a regular sleep routine and don't spend like a ton of time on electronics. Another thing I'll say is just be careful how much information you're taking in. You know, we do need time where our brain can just chill and be quiet.
That's what I call meditation time. I know some Christians hear the word meditation, they freak out.
Oh, it's in the Bible.
Yeah. Literally sitting. I have a room upstairs. Remember, we are upstairs.
We are upstairs.
Right next to us. I have a room. And it's a little pad in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
And just shut the door.
Yeah.
Just sit.
Yeah.
You can pray, you can think, you can do that, but just do not, or manifest the day, whatever. But we live in a world where a TV's always on your phone. You just slide. There's no way our brains were ever built for that overload of information, even if it makes you happy and emotional and, you know, you're a voyeur. A voyeur to what? A voyeur. Look outside. Be a voyeur to nature.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, like, for me at the beginning, I went on a lot of walks. I would get up every morning, like 6:30. I would literally just roll out of bed, put on tennis shoes, and go walking about 3.5 miles. I had this wonderful path I went on. It was great.
Okay.
But I found at the beginning, I was like, I can't just go. And like, I wanted it to be a time to pray. And I couldn't, because all of this negative everything was just flooding my brain. And so I realized like, oh, I basically need to rewire my brain. That's what needs to happen. And so for me, for about a year, I listened to sermons every morning. I put that in
with the good, out with the negative.
Yes. And also, so I started doing that just to start filling my brain with the truth. And then I even found that if during the day my brain started going down that negative path, I would turn on another sermon. The Christian music or uplifting music or relaxing music at that time, it didn't do it for me. I needed words. I needed truth being poured into me. Okay. And then I eventually got to a point where I was more healed and I could go on, like now I go on walks and it's just me and I just go on a walk and it's quiet, or I'll pray or just think about things, whatever. But if you are in that kind of state right now where you're like, all the thoughts are just so hard and heavy, then like start bringing in things to rewire.
Let's take a quick break.
Are you making the tough decision about divorce or in the middle of your recovery? Well, I have a few books you will want to read. Don't navigate one of the hardest journeys you will face without a roadmap. Visit toddturner.com/books to find the helpful guide you can keep with you during this time of decisions and healing. toddturner.com/books. Now back to the program. Agreed. I actually did the same. I would also say I would listen to books on tape or the Bible on the Bible. Just to hear something to make my brain think on and stay on versus the randomness. And so even though it's probably wise to make it biblical in sermon, even if it's if you like gardening, listen to a podcast on gardening. Just stay there. And I created routines. I do want to say something for the people listening. Some people, when they get divorced, right, they go lose 40, 50 pounds and they hit the gym and whatever. I think their motivations may be a little off, but some people can do that. I had no energy. I was exhausted. It took me, you said 1 year, it took me years to have energy to work out.
Well, I wasn't talking about energy to work out. I was talking about just my brain.
The brain, desire. I was exhausted. And the thought of working out made me tired. The thought of it. So I walked. That was it. That's about all I could do was walk. And if that's what you got to do, go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as far as physically, like I was in a spot, especially the last few years of being married, I would get in bed at like 5 or 6 p.m. I couldn't.
5:30 is my record.
Yeah. I couldn't like function after that, but then it got better and it got better and better. And now I have a really great sleep routine, but I also can stay up. You know what I mean? And now I have the energy. I lift weights several times a week and, I can do all those things again. So just, I think, give yourself some grace and then also just pick like 1 or 2 little things to focus on, to work on. Don't be like, oh my gosh, I got
to fix my life.
No, you don't.
You can't. It'll paralyze you.
Yeah. So just go really, really slow.
Agreed. Okay. Can I get a nuance? Because before I forget, when we're talking about gut health, probiotics. Everybody take probiotics?
I mean, they're great, but you can just get them in your food.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was one of the things I started doing. Then I started doing vitamins. And then one day my sister was like, we were laughing because you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, hey, I see on your chart, I put you on zinc last year. How's that going? I'm like, I don't know. I'm taller. Like, what was zinc supposed to do for me? And so all these little things you take, sometimes I look up and I'm like, when I take them, I don't feel different. And when I don't take them, I don't feel different. So why am I spending $200 a month on all this stuff?
That's also why you need like a nutritionist, somebody who's trained in nutrition to do that for you. It really is in the long term better than just trying to kind of throw together.
And feeling it and charting it. Yeah.
I mean, you're going to end up maybe in my office.
And blood work does a lot. A professional and with data.
Yeah. Have somebody that's trained. Yeah. Don't just go to like Vitamin Shop and grab a bunch of stuff. Usually it's just a waste of time and money.
Okay. Well, that's great practical help. Okay. Sleep, movement, sunshine, socialization. These are all wonderful things. So let's talk about like some more categories about this. Well, I think your experience is gonna pepper the whole conversation. So I want to move a little past just health, but I know you're a pseudo-therapist, as you said. But when people come in, there's spiritual health, there's financial health, there's a lot of things to fix. And to your point, you can't fix everything at once. But I think one of the problems that many people have is their marriage broke, their number one relationship in their life broke. And they say, oh, in order to fix that, let me go get a new one. And that's how you fix it. You fix a broken relationship with a new relationship.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is you have a heck of an opportunity to make sure your next one is better than your first one. And you're not just out here looking for somebody without that person's problems. Right?
And you know what? If you don't ever find anybody ever again, but at least you have become like the best version of you. Right? And life's going to be a lot better.
A lot better and usable by the Lord, which is literally what we're put here for.
Exactly.
Like, right?
Exactly.
Worship and service. Like, this is what we're supposed to do. And Paul in the Bible literally says this. Like, this is the one thing that I don't have my head around. The Bible on the Old Testament, Adam is, well, it's not good for man to be alone. And then Paul's like, you know what? When you're not alone, think about how much you can serve the Lord, which is a true statement. So I'm like, well, both are true, but they sort of do conflict a little bit. They just do.
Yeah, I haven't studied enough to really comment on all of that, but I agree.
Yeah, it feels a little weird.
Yeah.
Feels a little weird, but I agree. When you're alone, sometimes you really are craving that companionship. But at the same time, once you learn who you are, how you are wired, and what your calling is, I feel like you need to let somebody less and less, because you're just like, you wake up, you're in your zone, and your life is better. Your lenses are clear. You're happier. Like,
I wonder if that's different for men versus women, though.
Okay, because you're wiring for what you're wired for.
Yeah.
This is why, boy, this is a slippery slope conversation, because I also would say your time of your divorce is everything. If you're divorced in your 20s, I fully expect you to go get remarried, even if it's the wrong guy, just because it's easier for two people to grow a family together or whatever. I don't mean that the wrong guy, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
A warm body that you love each other and go get remarried is different than when you're an empty nester. You're past child rearing. You're past creating and nurturing a family. Now what do you do with your life? Like, where does that energy go? And a lot of people, it goes to hobbies and travel, right? Or businesses, right? Which is what you see people pour themselves into. And then an awful lot goes to vanity.
Yeah.
Vanity activities, which means I go out a lot. I go do things that are fun. I spend a lot of money on my body and my face and my hair and whatever for whatever. It's a complicated, slippery slope. When you don't have a healthy view of who you are and why you're here, you make poor decisions. Is that a nice way to say that?
You can make poor decisions. Yeah. And I think that having a community around you, like a good, one or two friends at least, that can call you out. Right? Yeah. Like, that can hold you accountable.
What are you doing over here?
Yeah. Like, what are you doing with your time? Or if they see you kind of like going down that road of vanity, being like, hey, come on back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What's that all about? Or how about you and I do something Saturday? It's not what you were going to do Saturday.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. So you said it took you quite some time. Why? Like, is divorce that hard and complicated that it just takes a while for dust to settle and for you people to be mentally ready? Like, this is what part of this podcast is about. I'm trying to tell people, here are your milestones. Here's a nice way to navigate them or think about them to protect you, because I've made enough of the mistakes for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's coming from a different place. So some people, it might be a year or two to kind of feel like they've gotten back to themselves again. They have taken time to do counseling and, get healthier. And then other people like me, it just takes a lot longer because of the things you had to go through, or maybe the length of the time, or maybe like the lies you believed and the, different things like that. So I think that it looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
But I think definitely taking the time is so important.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna embarrass myself. I don't know another way to say it. I think it's embarrassing. And let's say you bat 900, you still struck out 100, or 100, 1%, 10% of the time. But here's what happened to me. I met someone who was semi-recent divorce. I used to have a rule, at least a year, maybe 2, but I would not date anybody that hadn't put in the work, whatever that means. Like we've said, that's a blanket statement. It looks different for everybody. Right. But her kids were having a little bit of issues with the divorce. Imagine that.
Sure.
Of course they were. And I would say I felt like she was a really great person to lean into. But I just thought, I don't want to be the guy who takes you away from the work your kids need. And it was a little bit arrogant of me to say, you haven't put in enough work, and I'm not going to be in the way. And I just sort of broke the relationship off, like I just did. Though I thought she was a great person. And she got a little mad. She goes, who are you telling me I need to put in work? And I go, well, I don't know, but I'm just here to say you haven't. Well, I looked up 3 to 6 months later, she met somebody. She got married within a year. And they seem to be living happily ever after, right? Now, I don't know the nuances. For all I know, her kids are a train wreck, right? I don't know. But I did say I missed it. Like, I feel like at this point I missed it on her. Like, okay, who am I to tell somebody to put in more work? But at the same time, you hadn't put in enough work. I don't know. Do you have a hard and fast rule when you date people?
I mean, I think that they need to have been divorced for at least a year, and then there's just questions. You just come in with curiosity. Tell me what it was like. Because some people too, I don't know, were they separated for 5 years? I don't know. Right. There's just, everybody's coming from a completely different place. So, and then just asking, getting to know them and coming in with a lot of curiosity and asking a lot of questions. And then just observing. Yeah. And that then, with enough time, it gives you enough time to figure out, Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a girl told me recently, she would talk to a guy, he's like, everything's good. Well, tell me about your kids. I don't know, I don't talk to my daughter. We don't have a strange relationship. I'm like, well, that's a problem. Like, why aren't you spending all your effort? And then again, the plane may have landed. It is what it is. There's nothing you do about it. Good questions. You have to ask great questions.
Just, tell me about that. What's going on?
Yeah.
How did you get there? Just come at it from lots of different angles.
Yeah. When you're not in a hurry to get in a new relationship, you have clear eyes and you have to have a clear mind. And that's the reset we're talking about. It's this giant, to me, the reset, my personal reset was not going back to how I felt single again. Like I was in my 20s when I was single. So what am I going back to like that? I don't want to be that kid again. Yeah. With those naive thoughts and ideas, right? So that wasn't really where I was trying to go. And then you spend all your time on your marriage. My thing was like, I don't even know fully what my hobbies are. Like, what do I like to do? What do I want to do? Am I the man I want to be to even do those things? Like, I don't know, like let's say, I'd love to go on, I love to run a marathon. Can you even run? Well, you might want to start there. Like, I didn't even know where to spend my time and energy. And that took me a while. But before I even got to that, back to the walking issue, is I created a life to rest, meaning I paid somebody to mow my yard. You think I'm a grown man, I can mow my own yard. But I made that decision that was a stress point in my life. Yeah. Didn't want it. I rented a house, sold a house that I owned, so that I'll change a light bulb. That's about it. If the garbage disposal goes, I just pick up the phone. I don't even get down there with a wrench. Like, not my problem.
Right.
Just created a world where I could breathe and rest to get enough of a clear mind to then move on to the next stage. But that's quite a while. That doesn't happen overnight.
No. And you're never going to like evolve into like the ultimate whatever. So it's always a work in progress.
Oh, no, it's 100%. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. What is a finish line? When you talk about, finding a new identity and discovering you and getting healthy, I mean, there's no finish line to healthy.
I think I'm still on that road.
Yeah.
I mean, I am like a completely different person than I was like 7 years ago. But like I'm still on the road of healing, and I still go to therapy, and I still am working on myself. And I think that as believers, we always should be, right? Because we're wanting to be more and more like Jesus. So
right.
I feel like there isn't an end.
There's never an end to sanctification. I think there's a word I like to use, healed enough.
To do what?
To get in a next relationship.
Oh, okay. To get in a next
healed
relationship.
Enough.
Sure.
Because to your point, I think you and I agree on this. People act like, oh, I'm over my divorce. I sort of look at it like, I'll never be over mine until I die. Like, I'll never be over it. Yeah. But semantics, what does that mean to be over it?
Yeah.
I have scars.
Right.
The wounds are gone.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not bleeding out anymore.
Yeah.
I was bleeding out, like big time, but I'm not anymore.
That's right. To me, that's where you're healed enough.
Yeah, sure.
You're healed enough. And how you know? You talk to people. Are they always bashing their ex? Are they, the wounds come? Do they cry easily? I know different personalities cry easier than others, but
I cry easy. So
you're an easy crier. That's fact. But to your point, I'm an easy crier too.
You are.
Don't let me see a Fresh Prince episode. There's a Fresh Prince that every time show me a kid in the hospital, I cry. That's like funny. A baby. Yeah. Like a baby. Okay. The healed enough to say, I may have been in pain, and maybe it's a tragedy, and let's call it what it is. But I'm in a healthy place financially, spiritually, and to your point, how do you know those things? Well, they show up. They show up in your gut, your sleep,
and
your
even
numbers.
I mean, with health stuff, you have those kind of parameters. But then even like day to day, like, am I snipping at people? Am I patient? Am I easily led to anger? I mean, those to me, when those happen, are red flags that your mind or spirit or whatever is waving to say, hey,
you're not in sync.
There's an issue here, Yeah. And for me personally, when stuff like that comes up, I have gotten into a habit of stepping back and going, okay, why did I react that way? What was going on? Does it go back to something I'm still upset about? Like,
is it a healthy trigger or a bad trigger?
Right. And like, okay, pray over that. What can I do to change that? Because I don't want to be like that. That's ick, and that's not how the Lord wants me to be. So I think there's a lot of like red flags in yourself that you can see, whether it's you're not sleeping, your body's waving red flag. Right. If you're easily led to anger, red flag.
Right. And if you know you're having to wear a mask in public, meaning you're one way in public. Now, a lot of people are this way. You're one way in public, and then at home, that's a red flag. You're like, man, I'm on edge around here, but I know how to sell a car, and I'm fine. Yeah. Well, if you live a double life, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
I think.
Totally. Yeah. So those are ways that you can kind of gauge at how you're doing, and if you're ready to invite somebody else into your life.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that for a second. I know with a health lens, I don't want to paint you in a corner on here, but I'm assuming with a health lens, there's a point where a client would no longer be a client, meaning...
Yeah, that's the goal.
Your goal
not trying to create lifetime clients, or I would not be doing a good job.
Like chiropractors sort of do that, right? Well, this is going to be an 8-month treatment plan. It's like, how about 2? Just come here twice and leave.
Yeah, but like your nervous system, like when it's out of balance, that's going to cause your spine to be out of balance. So that is a constant thing.
Right.
It's not something you just go to a chiropractor like 5 times and it's just done. That is more of a
treatment plan.
It is,
if you will.
It's kind of like eating healthy food.
Is a treatment plan.
Yeah, it's the same type of thing.
So what is like, when do you, I may be asking the wrong question because you do so much, I don't know which one to nuance into, but what are telltale signs that you are in a good spot? Like for like healthy wise, like is it blood numbers? Is it people come in with a glow and they're like, okay, I really feel great? Or I now, because I feel great, now it's manifesting in this way. Like I'm entering that 5K next month or whatever. And you can see it. You're like, when you walked in here, you walked slow and grunted when you sat down. And here we are 2 years later and you're running a 5K and you're smiling.
Right. I mean, for me, when I'm working with a client, it just depends on their goals. Like I had one lady that she'd been working with me for about a year. She had autoimmune disease. And she was like, I never knew I could feel this good. I never knew. And she goes, even if like my autoimmune disease never goes into remission, because it can go into remission. She's like, even if it doesn't, she goes, I don't care because I feel amazing.
No way.
So it depends on the person. And then I think that like, if we're not talking about health like that, we're talking about emotional health, spiritual health, things like that. I think just take a gauge of like, well, how am I feeling? Yeah. Are things going well? If they are, then that's, a good sign.
That makes total sense. Okay. I frequently, obviously this is a Christian lens on the topic of divorce, but I do draw a line between Christianity and church culture because they're not always the same thing, even though we sell church as this is what a Christian does. I challenge that, right? Because this is an American church model is not the same model we had in Acts. They didn't have a church with pews and a pastor and a worship team. It's all made up based on a desire to get it right, but it doesn't mean it's right. Travel the world right now and people worship so many different ways.
Sure.
They do church so many different ways. If the Bible wanted there to be a standard, it would have given us one. It's right. So here's my argument. When it comes to church and when it comes to healing, I believe the church way more often than not, how's that for semantic wording? Way more often than not, invites the divorcee to come do church, and that's what's going to fix you. Meaning, well, just go to your small group. Serve. Just go help on Wednesdays. And I frequently encourage people who have just gone through a divorce. I'm not saying if church it keeps you, to your point, if it keeps you busy, it keeps your mind going, I'm all for that. But I actually encourage people to sort of take a break from your church if your church is demanding or stressful or whatever, because church isn't necessarily healing for your trauma, and it's not necessarily a good walk with the Lord. I'm down with that. Learning scripture, which is the word of God who's showing you about his characteristics as his redemption plan. I'm down with that. Working in your women's ministry for the conference they have next month about whatever topic it is. Yeah.
It might just be a time to pull back. And that is okay. That is okay to take a time where you are like, you know what, I have a lot of things I need to heal from, and I can't really be in a place where I'm going to church and I am physically serving right now because I need to take in the scripture. I need to like walk through some things right now. You know what I mean?
I totally agree. And don't feel guilty when your pastor, who knows nothing but the church world, gets paid to grow that church through, they use the word his vision, but I'm going to use the word, that's all he knows, is getting people to sit in those pews on those days. And it's all, don't get me started. This is my pet peeve. Don't even get me started.
We shouldn't go down that road.
We shouldn't go down that road because it's
Turn around or get off on a exit.
It's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for me to talk about these things. But my point is, don't feel guilty when it's like you disappeared. Because I think a lot of pastors think, oh, that divorcee, they're just, whatever. They're the ones who caused the marriage problem. They just fell away. And I think just because the church isn't always the best place to heal and work.
It can be. I think it depends on where you are.
Yeah.
The church community that you have. you know? So, but I do think it's important to at least be in really close contact with at least a couple of believers, right?
That strong believers, strong friends who can speak truth into your life.
You don't need to just, dive into a hole. That's not a good idea at all.
Totally agree with that. I want to give people permission because I think people aren't as good at separating their pastor and God. Your pastor's not God. That you can get guilted into church. Church is your answer. That's where people love you. You need to come to church. Like, that's where your friends are. None of those are paid counselors. None of those are experts. None of them, there's, like, hey, I'm dealing with this problem. Well, Proverbs 16:10. What does Proverbs 16:10 have to do with my thing? And I think people who haven't been through the trauma of divorce, and my pastor doesn't know what you know about gut health, brain health, nervous systems. So when he throws me, I just go to that Thessalonians on Wednesday night. We're going through Thessalonians. You should be there. I'm sorry, but that's not what people who've been through trauma need. It's just not.
It could be.
I'm not saying it couldn't.
It could be.
You're being nicer than I am. You're right. You're right that it could be. I'm telling you, mostly not.
Okay, I guess just be open-minded, and I think if it's more about church than reading the scriptures and having a personal relationship with the Lord, then like steer towards reading the scriptures and having a personal relationship with Jesus, right?
I want to give people permission that's okay. I'm not telling you to go do it. I'm not telling you all churches suck. I'm saying churches are not in the business. Well, I may get letters for this. Churches aren't in the business of trauma help. Jesus is in the business of it, but churches aren't. They're not trauma experts. The word trauma almost never comes up in church. The word trauma. But we live in a world with trauma. And there's trauma health effects and life effects. And I get tired of using the analogy, but if you have a car wreck and you limp into church and they're like, hey, how you doing? You want to come work in Awanas? You're like, I just had a wreck. Why would you ask me to do that? And then the pastor gets up there and preaches about how there's not supposed to be any wrecks in this life. I've been in a wreck.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, I've been in a wreck.
Analogy.
And so if you've been in a divorce wreck, you going to First Thessalonians on a Thursday night, that's not what I need right now. And I'm here to encourage people to work on themselves. Church isn't always the answer. Jesus always is the answer. And really reset your life. It's your opportunity. Even if your post-divorce life may be harder than your marriage life, which means now you got financial problems and you lost all your friends and all the things that happen post-divorce. Even in that crisis mode, you need your health. You need your mind. You need a strong walk with the Lord. You got work to do. Why would you go start dating somebody? Which is where a lot of people go right off the bat.
Yeah. And that's where I think that if you are getting into the dating world or you are, you've been divorced, you've done the work, then I think it's very smart to be discerning when you meet other people to ask really good questions so that you can discern where they're coming from and that you don't get entangled in something that you maybe shouldn't get entangled in.
That's right. And don't let and you make better decisions when you're not working off feelings and wants. You're working off logic, clarity. You have some spiritual discernment, like red flag, I can see that red flag way easier because I have clear eyes.
Sure. And
you walk away. Okay, I want to end with this, and that is, it's a little gimmicky, and I'm not a big fan of gimmicky things, but the idea of writing your own obituary, I think is great. When you just, I don't know if you've heard about this exercise, right? Where you sit down, pretend you're at your funeral, and 5 people got up there from work, church, whatever. What would you want them to say about you? What would you want them to say? Now, I'm not saying even this is theologically correct, but hang with me a moment. If you want to say, I was a very giving person who gave of my time or whatever, and you look up and you're like, well, when's the last time you gave of your time to anything? I think it's a good audit to just mentally go down and say, am I the person I want to be? Well, by doing that exercise, you're defining what you want to be and want to be known for. Now you have a bar to look at. And then I say, use it as motivation for your reset. Like,
yeah, that's a great way to do it.
Right? It's one way.
It's one way.
It's one way. It's not the only way. But for those listening, you're like, they're in the, I don't even know where to begin. I want people listening that are in the throes of it. Sometimes you feel like you have no hope. You're worthless. You failed at something that literally was your most important thing. It's like, I'm married. I told God this is the person, and it's not. It wasn't. And you have that tragedy story in your heart. You've got the ramifications of it all. Sometimes your self-esteem is garbage, a hot, burning dumpster fire. It is.
True.
And you're just sitting there like, I don't even know how I'm going to survive. I don't know what the future looks like. You're looking for any hope, any whatever. It's not as bad as it seems. It's just not. We serve, this is the beauty of being a Christian on this. We serve a God of redemption. Mm-hmm. And redemption does not always mean restored marriages. The Lord can redeem you as an individual. Yes. He may not redeem you with a new partner. Mm-hmm. Don't know. Yeah. But you can be redeemed.
He can redeem your kids.
That's right. He can redeem your kids. He can restore things in a way. Job didn't get his old wife back. She didn't come back to life. He got a new wife. Right? He lost that one. But God restored him differently. Mm-hmm. And he can restore us differently. Mm-hmm. But it's hard for him to restore when you're laying in bed all night, on your phone till 3 a.m., binging Netflix 4 or 5 hours a night every day, not getting on it. So like, how can God say, how can I work with that? You didn't put in the work, right?
Right.
I mean, how's God going to save you from that? You've got, at your pace, put in some work. And I'm going to put words in your mouth. I want you to correct me. One of the first places that start is with your health, because without health, you have cloudy mind, you have a weak body, you have weak energy levels. And so how can you really put in work unless you get your body right? Mm-hmm. Is that self-fulfilling prophecy? Yeah. You're tired, so you don't do anything. You don't do anything, you're tired. It works the opposite.
Right.
Get energy, you have energy, you do stuff. You do stuff, it energizes you. Then you get excited about a hobby or a thing, and then you just look up one day and you're like, okay, I got this. Yeah. I got this. Mm-hmm. Before you date. Okay, I said that was the last thing. Really, this is the last thing. Tell people, I know you probably have a waiting list because you do, but you also have some online stuff. Somebody's listening and they're like, I need Carrie, or I need something Carrie offered. Talk a little bit about what do you want people to do, and I'll put the links. Yeah. If you're listening to this, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, there will be links below of everything Carrie says right here.
Yeah. I mean, you can go to my site, deliciouslyorganic.net. I've got so many articles. If it's like you're dealing with sleep, go read my sleep article. If you're dealing with anxiety, read my anxiety article. If you're a woman and you're dealing with, I don't know, hormone imbalance, go read my hormone balance article. Okay. I also share so much information on Instagram, a whole lot. And then I have like an online thyroid course. So if you're dealing with any kind of like thyroid, hormone imbalance, autoimmunity, I've got that. And then if you want to work with me one-on-one, just look up my name, Carrie Korem, and just, I'm in Dallas.
And you can do that virtually and or in person?
Yeah, I now have virtual option.
Okay, so if somebody's in Florida, they have an option.
Yep.
No one has to drive to Dallas.
Nope.
But if you're here, why would you not? Why would you not? Exactly. Okay, thank you. If you're listening, put in the work. The new you probably could not have been invented before your tragedy. It can now. And don't jump into too much until you've got your sea legs underneath you. Put in the time. Put in the work. That's not a couple of therapy sessions. That's not one long vacation. It's time. And it sometimes feels like you can't imagine. When I heard people were divorced 5 to 10 years when I was very first divorced, I thought, there's no way that'll be me. What's wrong with you that you can't get your act together by 5 to 9 years? And now I'm past the 5-year mark. I'm backwards. I'm like, how could you ever get to the place that you could get married without putting in that work?
Yeah, it takes time.
It takes time. And you don't want to hear it when you're in the middle of it, but it's worth the wait to finally reach that new you. Mm-hmm. Totally agree. All right. Blessings, everybody. Thank you for listening to the UnYoked Podcast with me, Todd Turner. Can I ask you a favor? 2, actually. First, rating and reviewing this podcast positively goes a long way to help others find this resource. I get told constantly, I wish I knew of this podcast earlier. Well, you can make that happen with just a simple rating on the podcast app you're listening to right now. Also, when you're done with that, please go to toddturner.com/books and purchase, gift, and review the resources that we have available for those needing help in their divorce journey. It's a lot easier handing somebody a book sometimes than handing them a podcast. And your Amazon reviews really help get our books higher on the chart for others to find. toddturner.com/books. Thanks so much. And please, really, just review the podcast really quick. Thank you.